Global Work and Travel. What a company. A company that I would not recommend using. Is it legit? Technically, yes. It's not technically a scam, but for what you get, it feels like a complete scam. So I'm going to tell you all about my experience with Global Work and Travel, and it's not exactly great. So I signed up for the TEFL program here in Argentina, teaching English as a foreign language, on Global Work and Travel's website. I got a phone call from a girl from Australia named Taylor, and talking with my classmates that also use Global Work and Travel, Taylor was the person that all of us from the US had to talk with. But what's weird is that when you sign up, they clearly advertise to pay a $5 deposit to reserve your spot on the trip. But when Taylor from Global Work and Travel calls you, she immediately begins making you think that you need to pay the full amount as fast as possible or your spot will be reserved. You'll see later why this was sort of a ridiculous claim. And the price of this little trip, well, it was a little over 3,000 US dollars. That does not include flights. That is just for the school, like the TEFL course and the accommodation that they provide. So, if you just set up a payment plan like I was originally going to do, they will warn you that if you take too long to pay it all off, you will not have your spot saved and you could be kicked from doing the course if you don't pay as soon as possible. It's weird that they make you pay a deposit to reserve your spot, but then after you reserve your spot, they call you saying that your spot isn't reserved and just demanding that you pay right away. It's a little weird. But out of the fear of missing out, I paid. I wanted to teach English. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time now. But then I had to fill out some paperwork, pretty normal stuff, until I had to do the FBI background check. So I'm from a small town in Oregon. They told me I needed to go to this specific place to get my fingerprints scanned, but there wasn't anywhere near me that I could do it within like 500 miles. They told me an alternative was I could go to my local police department. So I went to my local police department. They told me no, they can't do it, and I need to go to the state police. Alright then, I go to the state police, and they told me they can't do it. I need to go to my local police station. So I was obviously getting the runaround. Eventually, I just did them from home and sent the fingerprints through the mail, which you need to pay for, by the way. It's not free, and I think it cost around $50 in total to buy the fingerprint paper, to buy the ink for your fingerprints, because it all has to be specific or they will not take it, and you need to pay to request a background check from the FBI. Now, kind of when all this was happening, I was also in contact with another trip coordinator whose job was to find me a flight, pretty much to Buenos Aires. And I've normally booked all my flights on my own, but, I figured I would see what they come up with. Now, I told her to check flights from San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, a lot of the major international airports that are relatively within driving distance for me. And the flights she kept sending me were all over $1,200. I thought this was kind of shocking because I would look up the exact same flights that she was sending me, and they were only around $600 or sometimes even cheaper. And when I asked her why there was such a huge difference in the prices, she told me that it's because Global Work and Travel charges a small fee for their service. I don't think $600 is a small fee. So I ended up buying my own flight and saving myself some money, which was not something that you can normally do with Global Work and Travel. They're not big into saving you money. But they did talk me into buying the travel insurance through them because they told me that I would not be able to work in Argentina without it. And I can tell you, I have a job, or at least I've been told I have one, haven't started working yet, but they have not needed to see any of my travel insurance that was apparently required, and the travel insurance cost over $1,000. But with all of that taken care of, it was just a waiting game. At that point, I was mainly waiting to hear about where exactly my accommodation in Argentina would be, since that's one of the things that was covered by my initial $3,000 plus dollars. Now, they are a little tricky with the wording, and it was quite confusing because they word it as getting a private room, but when I talked with Taylor on the phone, she specifically said private apartment. So, I was really interested to see, where this private apartment would be, but it's not a private apartment, it's a private room. You do have roommates with you from the course. Now, my flight to Argentina left on January 30th. So, at the end of December, I checked in with Global Work and Travel to see if they had any information on where my accommodation would be. And she told me that they didn't have anything yet, but I would get that information in the first week of January. Can you guess what information I did not receive? So she told me that it would arrive either the following week or the week after that. There's nothing quite like not having any idea where you're going to live when you're about to move to a foreign country. It was great. And I was getting really concerned because we were running out of time before I left. Would you like to take a guess at when I finally got the information for my accommodation in Argentina? I'll give it a minute. Not a minute. I'll tell you right now. It was January 29th, the day before my flight to Argentina. I was not happy about that at all. I was pretty upset because it didn't give me time to research where it was, what was around the immediate area. Like, I still had to get all my stuff packed. I was doing so much stuff. Like, I just had to quit my job and obviously say goodbye to everybody that I wasn't going to see for who knows how long. So I didn't have time to fully research where this was going to be. But good old Taylor promised me that the accommodation would be within 30 minutes of the school. I took that to mean 30 minutes walking, and to be fair, everyone else in the course, besides me and my roommate, they were all within 30 minutes walking distance from the school. But we were not. We were told a flat-out lie. See, taking public transportation took well over an hour. Taking an Uber took about 45 minutes, sometimes more around 30 on a low traffic day, but normally the traffic here in Buenos Aires is not good. And according to Google Maps, it would have been about a 2-hour walk from the apartment to our school, where we're doing the TEFL course. So, needless to say, we were not put within 30 minutes travel time from the school. And they put us in a dangerous neighborhood. My roommate and I were robbed at gunpoint our first day in the apartment when we went across the street to a coffee shop. If you want to hear about that, I made another video that kind of went into more detail on that. Now, the apartment kind of looks nice at first, but when you really start looking at it, the bed sheets were dirty, the pillows were stained. One of the beds had a wooden pallet underneath it, which made sleeping there extremely uncomfortable. The air conditioning would leak like crazy whenever it was hot. Even if it wasn't hot, sometimes it would just start leaking, and leaking right onto my bed, because I had an AC unit in my bedroom. Homeless people would buzz the building, constantly asking for money. And when you would try to enter the apartment, because you needed a key to get into the building, people would just try to force their way in. The bathroom that was in our accommodation, there was zero ventilation, and mold was growing inside the tiles. And just for the amount of money that I spent and that my roommate spent, well over $6,000 plus dollars, we were just kind of shocked at the state the apartment was in and the neighborhood that they put us in. The school that Global Work and Travel works with, Vamos Academy, and the only nice thing I have to say about this place is that the staff was really nice and our teacher was fantastic, but our classroom was dirty, had no air conditioning, was hot as hell there, and came here in January, did the course in February. It's the middle of summer here. It's pretty hot. And the other students in the course had problems also with their accommodation. One had a flooded apartment from a washing machine breaking, the other had a broken door and broken elevator, and they were on the 17th floor. And the door that was broken was the door to get into their apartment. It took over a week for that to get fixed. So none of us were very impressed by the accommodation that Global Work and Travel provided for us. We all felt like we were almost scammed for the amount of money that we spent. And speaking from my own personal experience, finding an apartment on my own, I do not understand how they could not find closer accommodation and cleaner accommodations for us that weren't covered in stains and mold. I mean, Global Work and Travel isn't technically a scam, but I feel scammed. I could have found my own apartment and found my own school to get the TEFL certificate and done all of it for a fraction of the cost. They claim they help with all the paperwork, but I don't think that's true. I feel like I still had to fill everything out and submit it, and all Global Work and Travel did was forward it to the school. I probably could have got in contact with the school on my own and did it directly with them. I wouldn't recommend using Global Work and Travel. It's not worth the money, and you could find better accommodation on your own and probably find a better school. My advice would be to just don't use Global Work and Travel, do your own research, and just make sure you're happy with what you find, because Global Work and Travel is not worth the headache that they are going to give you.